I am so happy to finally be able to sit in front of y'all today and talk about this. Because, I have been enjoying Chainsaw Man Part 2 so much. I'm talking way more than I was initially anticipating. And this is coming from someone who y'all all know my biggest weakness are time skips. That's my biggest weakness. A well-executed time skip where we get to see the upgraded designs, the updated designs, but even more than that is a time skip where we switch POVs and we're introduced to a brand new cast of characters and we get to see how the author makes us attached to these brand new cast of characters and how that is eventually going to connect to the other characters. I love that. I love that. That is why the Trails Legend of Heroes series is one of my all-time favorite series because they do that to perfection. To perfection. So it's like, when I saw Chainsaw Man Part 2 with switching protagonists, I was like, injected. And then especially after the most recent chapter, I was like, yes, sir. Yes, sir. But here's the thing. Fujimoto and his stories. The way I like to put the spectrum on the series that I really enjoy is that they fall under several different categories, right? Either a series really inspires me creatively in my field of work, or it's something really entertaining that I just enjoy experiencing, but I'll always get some sort of creative inspiration from it, or something that I just really need to talk about, right? Like it's one of those, but they all follow under the umbrella of almost everything that I've ever experienced. I think everything I've ever experienced has inspired me in some way, shape, or form from a storytelling standpoint. Fujimoto's works, every time I finish any of this individual stories, I just want to sit in front of my computer and write. That's all I want to do. Because the manner in which these, whether it's the one-shots or the actual series themselves, are handled, executed, I just really, really enjoy the way this man writes stories. In any type of regard, whether it comes to from his character arcs to the way that certain situations are handled and chapters are structured, the way that the panels are, the way he takes full advantage of the medium in hand. I just love this dude. So it's like Chainsaw Man Part 2 coming back, or Chainsaw Man coming back in general, was on top of my already insane amount of appreciation for this individual based on the one-shots that he has published over the last 6 months. Before I get into that though, if I could stay on Chainsaw Man Part 2 for just a second. Y'all know how I am when it comes to great character designs. And by great character designs, that falls under several different things too. But you know when it comes to me, there's one thing that's universal that is in my veins. If there is a raw design that looks incredible, that's going to take an interesting character and elevate them to all-time status. The moment that I turned the page when Chainsaw Man first came back, and I saw the individual that we now know as YORU for the first time, just seeing that design in and of itself, I was like, oh, what a lucky individual. What a lucky individual Fujimoto is for capturing that design and being able to write material for a character with that design. So jealous. So jealous of Fujimoto for being able to write a character with such a raw design. But it's the conflict between YORU and Mitaka that has made these chapters so fascinating. And I'm looking forward to seeing how this is going to continue to evolve. And I really like the way that he's been releasing these chapters. Like you have some that have 19 pages, and then others that he'll take a 2-week break and release 50 pages. It's like, wow. So, but I'm loving the established connection. It feels like a slice of life in a Cold Steel type of thing, right, in a school. But at the same time, now you have what's currently happening in the current material, which I don't want to spoil too much, but in the current material, which is just insane. So it's like this slow, ever evolving process of these two characters and their conflict, and how I'm going to assume they're going to continue to like have it to where both of them are going to become one. It's so fascinating. It really, really is. But a fascinating character idea and concept is never enough, right? It needs proper execution. And I love the way that it's being executed thus far, but like I said, it all started with a design. When I saw the design, because the thing is, when you lead into, the empathy, and then you explode with that, I was like, oh. Yo, I'm telling you, that design is so raw, dude. It is so fire. It has this aura of like Hollow Ichigo to it, where I'm just like, yo, I'm down. I am down with this design, man. You feel me? So, really, really enjoying Chainsaw Man Part 2. But one of the major reasons why I really wanted to sit down here today and talk about this is the one-shots that Fujimoto has released. Because I'm still not finished with Fire Punch. I'm really enjoying it, but I'm not finished with Fire Punch just yet. But just listen to the song Goodbye Eri and Look Back are all extremely interesting in their own ways. And each and every single one of them left me with that feeling of just, when I finished it, I felt like I finished something that was like really long. And yet it wasn't. It's like, that's what I look for in short stories. A short story that is able to have that long-term impact on your mentality, where you just can't stop thinking about it. Even if it's just one small, simple idea or concept, or the way something was executed, or a character, or whatever it is, you just can't stop thinking about. And I feel that way about all three. When I look at just listen to the song, I remember when I first finished it, I was like, what in the world did I just finish reading? And it like kind of took me the entire day to really come to terms. It took me like 2 more rereads to really come to terms with how I felt, and I love that feeling. Because something I really love about Fujimoto's works is that he leaves a lot of stuff up to interpretation. But in that one in particular, it just really, I could not pinpoint, and I still can't pinpoint why reading that made me feel the way that it did. Is it because I'm a YouTuber and I can connect to that? Or is it because I'm currently on this journey as a writer and I can connect to it in that way? Or is it because I'm just a human being and I naturally connect to his works in this aura, in this area? I have no idea. But I'll tell you, those 19 pages are still in my mind. Or not all of them, obviously, but like the effect, like what I felt after I finished those, that one shot is still in my head. Like I still remember vividly how I felt. It's the same way I feel now, where it's like, wow, it's just one of those things that you feel, And I never compare anything to Evangelion, because that's like my gold, right? When it comes to, if I compare anything to Evangelion, it's got to be goated. But what I mean is, I remember when I finished Eva for the first time, I felt it, but I didn't understand it. It's just one of those things to where I felt it, right? And it really was the first story that made me feel that way. And that and Metal Gear Solid. Where there was certain things to where I felt it so much that led to me not even wanting to understand it. Because it made me realize that feeling it is much more important than understanding it. Especially whenever it's the author pouring who they are to the world. But that leads me into the other two. I want to talk about Look Back first, because I want to save Goodbye Eri for last. When I finished reading Look Back, it gave me the same feeling of whenever I finish like a classic anime movie. Like, whenever you finish any movie with some type of emotional resonance. I remember one time, I watched this anime. It was a long time ago. It was a movie called, I think it was Colorful, was the name of it. And I just randomly watched it. It was just one of those bookstore reads, as I call them, like, or watches, where you just see it, cover looks interesting, synopsis looks interesting, you watch it. And I watched it, and when I finished it, I was in awe. Like, I was shook, man. I was like, yo, that was something really special. When I read Look Back, it reminded me of how I felt there, where I was like, did I just read a script? Like, it felt like I watched a movie in manga form. And I know that's a technique that is utilized in quite a few manga that I've read. But Look Back, when I finished it, legitimately gave me the same feelings that I had like upon finishing an anime movie. It has the perfect combination of, you understand the circumstances, you understand the characters, but the ending just leaves you like wait a minute. Like, you know, it's one of those things, and he's so good at that. He's so good at that. And so Look Back for me was like a classic, not even just excluding to anime. It felt like I was like watching a Pixar movie or something, where you finish and you're like, man, like, even though it was so short, it felt like you went on a long journey. And that's the way a good movie should be, except it was in manga format. I know it's a full volume's length, right? Look Back, if I'm not mistaken. But still, it just caught me so off guard. It caught me so off guard. And that gets me to Goodbye Eri. You know, out of the new manga that I have attempted to read this year, I would say that Goodbye Eri ranks toward the very top of the list in terms of how I felt upon finishing that. That experience of reading Goodbye Eri was a roller coaster. It was so cool getting into it, thinking that you're into it for one thing, and then the way that the twists were executed was like, what? Oh, what? What? And it's like, it just elevates and elevates, but it's the presentation that gets me for Goodbye Eri, man. There are certain pages within that manga, within that one shot, that is legitimately, there's only one thing that is different in those panels. Only one thing. Like, I remember there was it was like a conversation at the dinner table, and it reminded me of the elevator scene from Ava in episode 22, where you have this moment with Asuka and Rei, and they don't do anything for 50 seconds. And obviously that was done for because of the budget, and they just needed to have time extend. But it ended up working in their favor because the tension was at its max. You were like, what in the flying flatters is happening? It just felt really unsettling, right? You're like, you're just waiting for something to happen, and they're just sitting here in the elevator for 50 seconds. And so even though it was done for, I'm going to assume it wasn't done with a creative purpose behind it, it ended up having a creative consequence behind it. So it's like, in this particular case, it gave me that same exact feeling where I was like, you're just looking at it, you see the same panel over and over and over again. You're like, it has this really unsettling feeling. It's like you know something's about to happen, and you turn the page and you see it. Or you turn the page and you see the exact same page over and over and over again. It really led to it. It was a very crazy experience, Goodbye Eri, man. And so then it starts reaching the emotional core of it, right? Because it's one thing to have great presentation and make it seem like you're some pretentious, individual that, and I'm all for some pretentious stuff, man. Hey, sometimes it hits different, right? But it's like the presentation of this, it was top notch, but that's not enough. You gotta have some sort of emotional core, some sort of emotional backbone to this, right? Man, oh man, dude. The further that we got into that, and then the more the twists kept, oh man, dude. And it's the final page that always gets me, because this is the thing with Goodbye Eri, right? There's so much happening, and I'm a One Piece fan. I'm a One Piece fan, all right? 1,000-something chapters. I cover it every week. We know how much happens in those chapters, right? How much it's filled with. This felt like that, where By the time that I got to the final page, and we had that immediate full circle back to how this all started, my mind, bro, when I tell you my mind was blown, and my mind was blown because normally whenever you get a reveal, because there was some crazy reveals, right? Normally whenever you get a reveal, it hits you, but it hits you from like an entertainment standpoint. Where like, oh my god, like, oh, this person died, or this person's his mother, or Darth Vader is Luke's father, or something like that, right? In this case, for me, when I saw that final page, I like got out of my seat. I was like, this flippin' Flagnard, he got us. He got us. It was the perfect way to end it, man. It really, really was. And it was the type of ending that it strikes a chord, because it's like, it was so good the way that he paid off that entire journey by, the best endings always take you back full circle. But it was the way in which it was done that I just did not expect. It came out of left field, man. Like, I don't know if it was just because I was in the zone and I was so immersed I didn't even think of it. But when I saw the final page, I was like, oh. It was one of those, like, just bang the table for a little bit. Like, they got me. They got me. And it was great, man. It really, really was. Like I said earlier, Goodbye Eri was one of those experiences that I just really, really enjoyed from both, and in every aspect. I just really enjoyed that one shot, man. It was definitely one of those experiences that that I think, from like a one shot standpoint, stands near the very top. It was just so cool. It felt like I was seeing this man just flex everything he could possibly do while delivering a message that was at the core of his being. Because Fujimoto, very similar to the way I look at Hideaki Sorachi, the creator of Gintama, who is so good at creating episodic stories. The reason why he's so good at it is because Sorachi pours so much of himself and his interests, what he finds funny, what he finds sad, everything about himself, he pours it into his story. And that's why you get to see his progression as a storyteller and as an artist from the beginning until the end. And even though at the beginning he still hasn't mastered all of that, you get to see the potential and the core of Sorachi as an artist very early on. And it just evolves over time. With Fujimoto, even though I've never read some of his early stuff, whenever I read all these, I was like, yo, this is the type of individual that pours everything that they are into the stuff that they create. Because you can just tell that all of these things are what interests Fujimoto, the types of techniques that he utilizes. You can just tell he's a massive fan of movies. Massive fan of movies. From down to the presentation to the way that he makes you feel things in such a short amount of time. I mean, he's got the technique down, yo. He has the technique down. Legitimately, if Fujimoto one day were to want to make a movie, I'd give him the budget. I'd give him the budget. I'd be like, yo, do something with this. He just has a knack for it, man. And the way that he's able to create that type of feeling within a manga with no sound. I know there's a term that's been thrown around, like this certain person is your artist's favorite artist. But I honestly feel like Fujimoto is going to end up being one of those individuals. By the time it's all said and done and we get his entire discography of like all of the stuff he's created, whenever he finishes his career, and we have all of these things, because so far it's already beefy. I already even read everything in the arsenal, and I already love this individual's works. So by the time that Fujimoto and I think, are the same age. So it's like, by the time this individual finishes his career, which we know a mangaka can go on for, it's 70, 80, if they want, 60, whatever it is, that's still a lot of years left in the tank. And if Fujimoto wants to continue to create, in the way that I see this individual creating, yo, this individual's, Tatsuki Fujimoto's discography, at the end, for all of the different things he's going to create, is nuts. It's going to be nuts. All right? And I feel like discography is the perfect word for Fujimoto's works in this case, because they all really have this unique feeling to them in a similar way that whenever you listen to somebody's music, each song can leave you with a different type of feeling. It's going to remind you of how you felt when you first heard it, or of what you were experiencing when you first read it, and stuff like that. So I really enjoy this guy's works. I do, and it was the one shots that really made me realize that, because when I first read Chainsaw Man was the first thing I ever read from Fujimoto, and Chainsaw Man was a great binge. I binged it in like 2 to 3 days. I caught up at like chapter 80 something, and I read the rest of it weekly up until the end of part 1, and now of course I'm caught up in part 2. But after that, I remember when he started releasing the one shots. Reading those is really what made me appreciate him as a storyteller. And I've gotten to the point now to where this is the type of individual where, we all have our artists that whenever they release something, we want to go experience it. Whether from a music standpoint, or whether you're a fan of a certain director in cinema, or a mangaka, or a video game creator, or whatever it is. Like, there are these individuals that whenever they release something, an author, whenever they release something, you just want to give it a shot because you know the type of things this individual has created, right? Fujimoto is getting to the point where he's becoming one of those for me, where whatever he ends up pushing out, I'm like, I at least want to give it a shot. It's so far he hasn't failed me yet. You know what I mean? And even if down the line there's something that I really don't mess with, I'm gonna give it time, because maybe it wasn't the time for me to experience that. It's just that type of individual, and I love the creative process, or what I believe his creative process is in regards to creating these things in such a unique way that's just so him. Like, all of these scream Fujimoto style. And it just goes to show the amount of work this individual has put into this, right? Because the only way that you can ever hone your style to this point is by continuously churning out as much stuff as possible and getting all that inspiration from others, where you finally start finding out what your own unique voice is, which your voice is going to be like a mixture of all your favorite things. And we obviously see his love for cinema here. There's like all of his love for manga and cinema and all of that stuff, and movies, and all of that has created the Fujimoto style. And the next time we get anything in the Fujimoto style, whether it be continuing this Chainsaw Man Part 2 journey or the next one-shot, I'm very much looking forward to reading it. And I just really, really like the way that this individual goes about creating these things. It's been a real treat. It's been a real treat, and I'm excited to finish Fire Punch, to add that to the discography, and have it be a part of the collection, right? But yo, I'm interested in seeing all of your thoughts on Tatsuki Fujimoto, and if you are an individual who's never heard of him before, if you've never read any of these works, or if you are somebody who's a big fan, or if you're somebody who doesn't like Fujimoto. I'm interested in seeing all sides, all perspectives. This is just my point of view as someone who just recently realized this individual, learned of their experience, and am now a big fan. No lie, I'm a pretty big fan of the stories that he's released so far, and the fact that he's so young is insane to me. It's inspiring, honestly. It's really, really inspiring. So I will see you all next time. Have an awesome day. Let me know what you think about all this in the comment section down below. And until next time, y'all have a good one. And remember, YORU greatness, yo.